So we've been talking about leadership competence in the area of working with people, people skills. We're specifically going to take a few minutes now and talk about dealing with difficult people. And that brings me to Gwen. Gwen played me like a fiddle. Here's what Gwen looks like. Gwen had a lot of potential. Gwen brought a lot of capabilities. Gwen was good at her job, and Gwen had issues. Gwen had a lot of issues. Gwen was, she was struggling with some issues at home, and so consistent schedule was a challenge. And I wanted to be for Gwen. I wanted to encourage her and grow her. I wanted to be a reasonable boss, and so I'd adjust the schedule to make it work for Gwen and help her out when I could. When Gwen was on her game, she was one of our best. You have somebody that is a top performer, but at times spreads cancer. Gwen had a bit of a temper. When she was at her best, she was winsome and exciting. She was smart. She was quick. Gwen was one of my salespeople. It might not be Gwen for you. Maybe it's Glenn. I don't know. But take a second and think about the Gwens and the Glens in your world. Gwen was one of my top performing salespeople. In fact, when I was managed a sales team that Gwen was a part of, we won a lot of awards. We were regularly, monthly and quarterly, one of the top performing sales teams in the entire organization. And part of that was because of Gwen. When she was on, she was a great salesperson. We did a lot of trade shows those days. One of the ways we marketed ourselves is we'd go to one of those events and we'd have a booth for 3 days. And the truth of the matter is, part of my job down and dirty as the manager of this team was I simply had to schedule booth duty. And so part of what we had to work is make sure we always had 2 people at the booth for customers who would come up so one could talk and the other one could scan. And so we had a big trade show that Gwen just no-showed on. No communication, no explanation, nada. She just wasn't there. Have you had somebody like that just disappointed you with failure to perform? Well, my boss got wind of it, and he had known the challenges that we'd faced with Gwen along the way, and he called me to task. He said, "That's it, Andy. Final straw is snapped. Monday morning, you're letting Gwen go." And then I made the fatal mistake. I made the fatal mistake that you have made at times as well. I made it with good intentions because I wanted to be a good boss and leader. And I knew Gwen had potential. I fought for her job. I mean, that's a good characteristic of good leaders. You fight for your people. I fought for her job. And I talked my boss into giving her one more chance. But he did say, "All right, Andy, but Monday morning, you got to meet with her. You're going to have a hard conversation with her. Andy, I want you to put her on plan." And so those of us that have ever followed that process, you know, they think us having a hard conversation is hard on them. They don't know that it's just as hard on us as it is on them. And I spent a good portion of that weekend uncomfortable and thinking through what I was going to say and how to approach it and how to be both firm but also encouraging to this employee that I wanted to treat well as her leader. And Monday morning came, and Gwen came in the office, and I was ready to start the meeting with her. And before I said anything, Gwen started yelling at me. And her voice was, I don't even remember what she said, but there was profanity. She pounded on my desk. There were some tears, I think. And then Gwen quit. She's quit right on the spot that morning. I had saved her job, and she quit. And I wish I could tell you, Dr. Andy Neillie Leadership Guru, it all has a good ending. It didn't have a good ending. In fact, not only did she quit that day, she went across the street. She went to work for one of our competitors, and she stole business from us. There's no good moral to this story, folks. I don't know if you've ever been in that. I'm sitting in my office after I hear her stomping out, swearing at her coworkers and at our company as she exited the building. I got to go out and talk to them. And that's when I learned the lesson. In fact, this has become such a powerful lesson for me that I've named it. I call it the Gwen Axiom. Here's the Gwen Axiom, fellow leaders. Just because they're hurt doesn't mean they're right. You are allowed to let them get emotional. You are not allowed to let them get control. In fact, I tell my team members regularly, I like emotions. It shows me that you care. But Gwen played me. Have you been played? I think this is a lesson, at least for me, that you can't learn in a book. You've got to learn it, though, if you're going to become an effective leader. Here's the good thing. When you and I learn the Gwen axiom, just because they're hurt doesn't mean they're right. When you and I learn that principle, we're at the front end of building a powerful, high-performance team. In fact, managers, I will tell you, when you learn to live by that lesson, you are at the front end of becoming a high-performance leader. The Gwen axiom, just because they're hurt doesn't mean they're right. Where do you need to apply that axiom with your team?